Imagine taking an old plastic bucket that has been sitting unused in a corner and transforming it into your own mini cucumber garden. Add the right growing mix, plant a single cucumber seedling, and watch it climb higher and higher until fresh green cucumbers appear. But what's the secret to making it thrive? It may look too simple to be true, but growing cucumbers in containers is a well-established way to produce a useful harvest when garden space is limited. Cucumbers are naturally vigorous vines, and although they can take a lot of space when allowed to spread across the ground, they can also be trained vertically on a trellis, making them surprisingly suitable for balconies, patios, small yards, and even tiny gardens. The real secret is not the old bucket itself. The bucket simply creates a controlled growing environment. What makes the difference is choosing the right container, giving the roots enough room, using a well-drained but moisture-retentive growing mix, providing strong sunlight, consistent water, regular nutrition, and a sturdy support for the vine. So before planting anything, start with the bucket. An old food-grade plastic bucket can work well, but never use a container that previously held toxic chemicals or unknown substances. Drainage is extremely important because cucumber roots need moisture, but they also need oxygen. If excess water remains trapped around the roots, problems can develop quickly. Drill several drainage holes near the bottom of the bucket so excess water can escape. And here is an important comparison. A small container may be cheaper and easier to move, but a larger container gives the cucumber roots much more room and is generally more forgiving. University of Maryland guidance lists cucumbers among large vegetables that can benefit from roughly 8 to 10 gallons of growing media with around 12 to 16 inches of depth, while other extension guidance shows that smaller cucumber cultivars can also grow in containers around 2 gallons. In other words, a small bucket can work for the right compact variety, but if your goal is a large, vigorous plant with a strong harvest, more root space is usually the safer choice. Now comes the part that many beginners get wrong: the growing medium. Do not simply fill the bucket with heavy garden soil and expect the plant to perform like a cucumber growing in a large garden bed. Container roots live in a restricted space, so the mix needs to hold moisture while still draining well. A quality potting mix combined with mature compost can create a much better environment. The goal is a loose, fertile medium where roots can expand easily and where water can move through instead of creating a permanently soggy bottom. Compared with an in-ground garden, a bucket has one major disadvantage. It contains a limited amount of soil, so nutrients and moisture can disappear much faster. That is why container cucumbers often need closer attention than cucumbers planted directly in the ground. Next, choose your cucumber variety carefully. This is another important comparison. Some cucumber varieties are naturally compact or bush type and can be easier to manage in containers, while full-size vining varieties can produce vigorous growth and a larger harvest if you provide enough root space and vertical support. If you have only a small bucket and limited room, a compact or patio variety can be a smart choice. But if you have a larger container and can build a trellis, you do not necessarily have to limit yourself to tiny plants. Vining cucumbers can climb upward instead of spreading across the ground. This is one of the biggest advantages of container growing. You can turn vertical space into productive growing space. When planting, you can start with seeds or a healthy young plant. If using seeds, plant them according to the variety's instructions and avoid overcrowding the bucket. One strong plant can be enough for a container. Some gardeners start multiple seeds and later keep the strongest seedling, but the goal is ultimately to avoid forcing too many cucumber plants to compete for the same limited roots, water, and nutrients. Cucumbers grow quickly when conditions are warm, and once the seedlings develop several true leaves, the strongest plant should be allowed to take over the container. Handle young cucumber roots gently because disturbing the root system unnecessarily can slow early growth. Then comes sunlight. Cucumbers are warm-season plants that perform best with plenty of sunshine and warmth. Put your bucket where the plant can receive strong direct light rather than hiding it in a dark corner. A common mistake is thinking that because the plant is in a container, it can grow anywhere. It cannot. Less light usually means weaker growth, fewer flowers, and less productive vines. At the same time, container plants can heat up and dry out faster than plants growing in the ground, especially during very hot weather. So the goal is not simply more sun. The goal is strong light combined with careful monitoring of moisture and plant stress. And now we reach perhaps the most important secret of growing giant healthy cucumbers in buckets: water consistently. Cucumbers are thirsty plants, and container soil can dry out much faster than garden soil. Instead of giving the plant a tiny splash every day, check the moisture in the root zone and water thoroughly when needed, allowing excess water to drain from the bottom. During fruit development, the plant's demand for water can increase. Inconsistent watering can stress the plant and affect fruit quality, while constantly waterlogged soil can damage roots. University of Minnesota recommends keeping cucumber soil consistently supplied with moisture and notes that cucumber crops need about an inch of water per week from rainfall or irrigation during the growing season, although container plants and hot weather can require more frequent attention. The important lesson is simple. Don't let the bucket repeatedly swing from bone dry to completely soaked. Aim for steady moisture. Once the vine begins growing, give it something to climb. A simple trellis, bamboo stakes, wireframe, or sturdy vertical support can completely change the way your bucket garden looks and performs. Instead of allowing the cucumber vine to crawl across the ground, guide it upward. This saves space, keeps the fruit cleaner, improves airflow around the foliage, and makes harvesting easier. Extension guidance also notes that trellising can help produce longer, straighter fruit, and can reduce contact between fruit and soil. Imagine comparing two identical cucumber plants, one spreading across wet ground and the other climbing vertically in clean air. The second plant has a major structural advantage because its fruit is easier to see, easier to pick, and less likely to sit directly on damp soil. Nutrition is the next piece of the puzzle. A cucumber plant that grows inside a bucket has access to only a limited amount of nutrients. Every new leaf, flower, and cucumber take nutrients away from that small reservoir. This is why container cucumbers generally benefit from regular feeding. Start with a nutrient-rich growing medium, then use a balanced fertilizer according to the product label as the plant develops. Once flowering and fruiting begin, many gardening guides recommend paying attention to potassium-rich feeding to support flowering and fruit production. But more fertilizer does not automatically mean more cucumbers. Too much nitrogen can push the plant toward excessive leafy growth instead of balanced fruit production. The goal is steady nutrition, not overfeeding. As the plant becomes larger, watch the leaves, stems, flowers, and developing fruit every few days. Look underneath leaves for insects, check whether the soil is drying too quickly, and inspect the trellis to make sure the growing vine is supported. Cucumbers can attract pests such as whiteflies and other insects, and keeping the plant healthy and monitoring it regularly makes problems easier to catch early. Good airflow, clean foliage, appropriate watering, and removing severely damaged plant material can all contribute to healthier growth. You do not need to turn the bucket garden into a complicated laboratory. A few minutes of observation can tell you a lot about what the plant needs. Pollination is another factor, especially when growing certain cucumber varieties outdoors or in protected spaces. Some cucumber varieties are parthenocarpic, meaning they can produce fruit without pollination, while other varieties depend on pollinators to move pollen from male flowers to female flowers. This is why variety selection can matter so much in container gardening. If your plant produces plenty of flowers but very few developing cucumbers, do not immediately assume that fertilizer is the problem. Look at the flowers, the variety, and the growing environment. Healthy pollinator activity can make a big difference for varieties that require pollination. And finally, don't wait forever to harvest. Cucumbers are best harvested while they are still tender and at the size appropriate for their variety. Regular harvesting can encourage continued production and prevents oversized fruit from taking resources away from younger developing cucumbers. Slicing cucumbers are often harvested around 5 to 8 inches, depending on variety, while pickling cucumbers are generally harvested much smaller. Use a clean snap or cut rather than aggressively pulling and damaging the vine. Harvesting frequently also gives you an opportunity to inspect the plant and discover hidden cucumbers that may otherwise become oversized. So, can an old bucket really grow giant cucumbers? Yes, but the bucket is not a magic trick. The real trick is creating the right conditions inside that bucket. Give the roots adequate space, provide drainage, use a good growing medium, choose an appropriate variety, give the plant plenty of sunlight, maintain steady moisture, feed it responsibly, and train the vine vertically. Compared with traditional ground growing, the bucket method gives you portability, space efficiency, and greater control over the growing environment, while the ground offers naturally larger root space and often requires less frequent watering. For someone with a small yard, balcony, patio, or unused corner, the bucket can turn wasted space into productive mini cucumber garden. And perhaps the most satisfying part comes at harvest time, when you reach beneath the leaves and discover a fresh cucumber hanging from a vine that started in nothing more than an old bucket. That is when you realize the secret was never expensive equipment. It was simply giving the plant what it needs in the right place at the right time. Thanks for watching.